Why are you doing this? This is outrageous.
This is a kangaroo court. That's what we have here.
It is clear. There's a pathway to achieve what you're trying to achieve. But, sir, this lacks decency. It lacks decorum. It shows that you do not want to simply hear from your colleagues. This is absolutely wrong.
Cory Booker there fired up at Thursday's Senate Judiciary Committee meeting. You can see there as Booker was admonishing the chair that most of his Democratic colleagues on the committee got up and walked out to protest a vote on one of President Trump's most controversial nominees. That is, of course, his former personal defense attorney, Emil Bove. Earlier this week, more than 75 former federal and state judges from across the ideological spectrum sent a letter to the committee urging them to reject Bove's nomination. But that seems to have had no effect.
Republicans fast-tracked the vote out of committee by skipping debate on Bove's nomination. Senator Booker eventually followed his colleagues, and walked out of the hearing, posting this to social media.
Our job is to deliberate. Our job as the most deliberative body is to hear from each other. They cut off all debate, rammed through a vote. My fellow senators who now are showing their willingness to just bow to Donald Trump's will, to be able to undermine this institution in order to do his bidding. This was a day of shame for this committee.
Former Fox News personality Jeanine Pirro was also up for a vote during that hearing, and despite Democrats' staged protests, Committee Chair Chuck Grassley says both Bove and Pirro's nominations will advance to the full Senate for a final vote.
So a couple of things about this, Amber. I do think it would be useful, to say the least, to hear from this whistleblower, Erez Ruveni, who, to my mind, is a credible person. And this is someone who was fired for telling the truth, in my view, about the Kilmar-Abrego Garcia case, where he said that Abrego Garcia had been deported mistakenly. Now, Ruveni, we can't, I don't think, give the full quote, which was a very profane quote allegedly from Bove, which was not about the Abrego Garcia case, but was about the use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport people. And according to Ruveni, Bove said that if a court sought to halt deportations under that we might have to tell the court to F you, I think we can say. He used the full term. Now, if we are now seeking to make a judge out of someone who believes that other court orders can simply be disregarded with a sort of middle finger, that seems inherently a problem to me. And it seems at least important to allow that to be heard.
Yeah, I think it's fine to allow it to be heard. It's also been denied by the Deputy AG, Todd Blanche, as well as apparently other people who were in the room when this supposed comment happened. So all of that should be put forward to the people who are going to be ultimately voting on his nomination. That's welcome to come in front of the Senate. But I think just to set the table here, I think the real reason that these attacks on Bove are coming is because he's, one, extraordinarily qualified for the position, and two, Democrats are, of course, worried that he is too in line with Trump's agenda. Extraordinarily qualified, he went to Georgetown for law school, served as a clerk for 2 judges in the Southern District of New York, and then was a top prosecutor in Manhattan for 10 years before serving at a very high level at the D-N.J. So there's no question that his resume is there. To me, this is Democrats saying that no matter how qualified you are, if you have politics that we don't like, we're not going to support you.
I don't agree with that characterization, Amber, and I'll tell you why. I think that the resume may well be there in terms of his educational accomplishments and his career accomplishments, but there has to be some appreciation or understanding of the importance of some kind of basic ethics in this. It's not a question of politics in the sense of ideology. It's a question of him saying that you can simply disregard a lawful order of a court if you want to, because you're in power and then we can raise the middle finger. That's inherently, I would argue, disqualifying from this kind of position.
Yeah, but of course it is an allegation from one individual who is probably angry that they were dismissed from the Department of Justice, so we have to take that into account as well. This is by no means a confirmed accusation. Right. It has been denied by multiple other people in the administration.
Right, but the fact that it is an accusation from someone who themselves has many reputable qualifications and a reputable career path creates the imperative for it to be heard. You are right that other people, I think Todd Blanche is one of the people who disputes
publicly
it.
disputed it, yes.
Now, that is fine. He would, of course, be welcome to dispute it in any kind of hearing as well. But the issue there is that there is some dispute about exactly the chronology of what Ruveni is alleging and whether Blanche would have been in the room or not. They can fight that out if they are provided with the opportunity to do so. One of the reasons Booker, and yeah, I get the criticism of Booker that he's sometimes a little performative and overwrought. I'm not immune to that idea of criticizing him for that purpose. But the reason for the walkout was the refusal to even hear those things being discussed.
Yeah, and I think, again, as I said, I think that they should hear it, but ultimately it is a sort of he said, she said situation. The whistleblower doesn't have any recording or evidence other than their own word that this happened. So if you're going to have a situation where the whistleblower says one thing, firsthand witnesses say something else, I mean, we're not really any further than where we started, right?
Well, we have already, though, seen some emails and texts released that at least appear to give some measure of support to what Ruveni is alleging, because it shows him and other people in the Department of Justice discussing what was being proposed, which was an ignoring of court orders. And look, we see this as, I think, part of a broader picture, because of course you have had President Trump suggesting that judges who rule against him should be impeached, people like Stephen Miller with this rhetoric about judicial coups. We have had a lot of attacks on the judiciary from within the Trump administration. So that is the context or the backdrop against which this takes place, and I think adds to the validity of investigation.
To be fair, though, the Supreme Court did indicate that lower level judges were improperly using nationwide injunctions when they should have only been doing that for the plaintiffs that were before the court seeking relief, or they could do it in the case of class action lawsuits. So Trump was right to an extent that the judges were going beyond their judicial authority. That was confirmed by the majority of the Supreme Court.
Yes, but you don't get to, under the law, decide that in advance, which is what Trump was suggesting. In other words, if you believe that a legal ruling is incorrect, there is, of course, a well-established pathway to dispute or contest that, which is the judicial process.
Which is what they did.
Up to and including the Supreme Court. But Bove's thing was well before the Supreme Court had
the alleged thing.
He was allegedly arguing that a order that at the time had legal standing could be ignored. That's different from saying, well, now the Supreme Court has ruled in our favor, so we can then comply with the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to an allegation, and yet the Trump administration complied with the injunction on the Alien Enemies Act. They didn't flout it. So that would suggest that, okay, either Bove was saying this in a silo, he's a top guy at the DOJ, so that doesn't seem likely. So it seems more likely to me that this was never raised.
But hold on now, because there's already a contempt case about Judge Boasberg, the judge who had suggested that flights needed to be turned back and they were not turned back. So when you say they complied, I don't really agree that they did.
Yeah, I mean, we debated that before over the international waters issue. So
we will leave it to some other time, perhaps. A new bipartisan immigration bill has some Republicans up in arms. We'll discuss that next. Stay with us.